They kicked me out of my own home, the house I spent 3 years fighting to save for my dying mother. I thought the pain couldn't get worse until I sat in that lawyer's office and heard my name wasn't even in her will. Just like that, I was erased. But here's the truth, they didn't win that day. They just didn't know it yet. Because I already had proof, and I was about to take everything back. So tell me, would you forgive or destroy them? They thought I had already lost. Michael didn't raise his voice when he said it. He just stood there, across the street, rain sliding down his face, one hand gripping a worn suitcase like it was the only thing left tying him to that house. The lights inside were still on. His house. Not anymore. A car passed, splashing water across his shoes, but he didn't move. 3 years, he muttered under his breath. I gave them 3 years. Inside, shadows moved behind the curtains, laughter, faint, careless. That was the moment it settled in. Not the will. Not the signatures. This. They weren't just done with him. They had already replaced him. His jaw tightened, breath slow, controlled. They think I walked away with nothing, he whispered. Then he lifted his eyes back to the house, steady now, almost calm. But they don't know how this ends. Because a few weeks later, the silence breaks in a very different room. Michael is sitting at a polished wooden table, back straight, hands resting calmly in front of him. No rain. No suitcase. Just control. Across from him, Ethan isn't smiling anymore. His fingers keep tapping against the table, faster, uneven. Michael, what is this? Ethan asks, voice tight, trying to sound steady but failing. Michael doesn't answer right away. He watches him instead, really watches him, like he's been waiting for this exact moment. Rebecca shifts in her chair, arms crossed, but her eyes flick toward the door. Then back to the laptop. Then to Michael. Just explain it, she says, sharper now. You said this was about the house. Michael leans back slightly, breath slow, almost patient. It is. A single click echoes in the room. The screen lights up. Ethan freezes. Wait, what are you? Michael finally speaks, quiet but precise. Let's not rush it. Ethan's face drains of color. Rebecca leans forward, eyes narrowing, something dawning, but not fully. The video is about to start. And whatever they thought they controlled is already slipping. Cut. Before the video plays, before anyone speaks again, there's a moment, thin, sharp, almost invisible, where everything hangs in place. Michael doesn't move. He just looks at them. Not angry. Not loud. Just cold. And somehow that's worse. Tell me something, he says quietly, eyes fixed on Ethan, then shifting to Rebecca. How far do you think a family can go before it stops being a family? No one answers. Ethan swallows, glancing away. Rebecca tries to hold his gaze, but even she hesitates for a second too long. Michael tilts his head slightly, studying them like strangers he's trying to understand. Is it when you lie, he continues, or when you take everything from someone who trusted you? Silence presses in again, but this time, it's different. He's not inside it anymore. They are. And for the first time, they realize they may have crossed a line they can't step back from. If you had met Michael 3 years earlier, none of this would have made sense. He wasn't the kind of man people noticed, quiet, steady, the one who showed up without being asked. And when his mother got sick, he didn't hesitate. I'll take care of it, he had said, already reaching for his keys while the others stayed silent on the phone. 3 years. Hospital visits before sunrise. Long nights in plastic chairs. Bills stacking faster than he could manage, but he paid them anyway. He stopped picking up extra shifts, then stopped working altogether. Someone had to be there when she woke up confused at 2 a.m., calling his name. "Michael, are you still here?" "I'm here, Mom. I'm not going anywhere." And he meant it. Friends drifted away. Opportunities disappeared. Even his own life seemed to pause, quietly shrinking around one purpose. But he never complained. Not once. Because in his mind, it was simple. As long as she was okay, everything else could wait. As long as the family held together, it would be worth it. That was the belief he held on to right up until the moment it started breaking apart. Ethan, on the other hand, always knew exactly what to say. "If you need anything, just call me," he would say, voice calm, reassuring, almost perfect. And Michael believed him at first. Why wouldn't he? It sounded right. It sounded like family. But calls went unanswered. Messages stayed unread. And when Ethan did show up, it was always brief, always at the edge of things, standing near the door, checking his watch, already halfway out before the conversation began. "How's Mom?" he'd ask, without really stepping closer. "She's not good," Michael would reply, waiting just for a second, for something more. Ethan would nod. "Yeah, keep me updated." And that was it. No offer to stay. No real involvement. Just the right words, placed carefully, like a script he had memorized. At family gatherings, he played the role perfectly: concerned son, responsible brother. But in the quiet moments, when things actually mattered, he was always just out of reach. Not absent enough to be blamed. Not present enough to be trusted. Rebecca was different. She didn't pretend. She didn't soften her words or hide behind polite concern. If Ethan stayed just far enough to avoid responsibility, Rebecca stepped in, but only to draw lines. "We need to be realistic, Michael," she said one evening, standing by the kitchen counter, arms crossed, voice steady and detached. "Realistic about what?" "About how long this can go on." Michael stared at her, not fully understanding, or maybe not wanting to. "She's our mother," he replied, quieter now. Rebecca didn't react to that. Her expression didn't change. "And this house," she continued, glancing briefly around, "these bills, they don't take care of themselves." There was no anger in her tone. That's what made it worse. Just calculation. Every word measured, every pause intentional. "You can't carry everything forever," she added. "At some point, choices have to be made." Michael felt something tighten in his chest. Not because she was loud, but because she wasn't. Because for Rebecca, this wasn't about family. It was about outcome. And in the middle of all of it, between the silence, the distance, the quiet calculations, there was Linda. She didn't need to say much for Michael to understand. A small glance, a weak smile, the way her hand searched for his in the middle of the night, that was enough. "Michael, you're still here," she would whisper, her voice barely holding. "I'm right here, Mom," he'd answer every time, gently squeezing her hand. "I told you, I'm not going anywhere." And for a moment, her breathing would slow, her expression softening, as if that promise alone could hold everything together. But sometimes, it didn't. There were moments when she looked at him differently. Not confused. Not tired. Just worried. One evening, as the light faded through the hospital window, she held his hand a little tighter than usual. "You shouldn't have to do this alone," she said, her eyes searching his face, not for comfort, but for something deeper. Michael tried to smile it off. "I'm not alone." But she didn't smile back. Her gaze lingered, quiet, knowing, like she could already see something he couldn't. And for the first time, Michael felt it too, something shifting beneath everything he believed was still safe. At first, Michael told himself there had to be a reason. People get busy. Work piles up. Life happens. That's what he kept repeating every time he walked into the hospital room and saw the same thing waiting for him, two empty chairs by the window. They said they'd come today, he murmured once, more to himself than to his mother, adjusting her blanket with careful hands. Linda didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward those chairs anyway, as if she was still expecting someone to walk in. Hours passed. Nurses changed shifts. The light outside faded from afternoon gold into a dull gray evening. The chairs stayed empty. Michael pulled out his phone. One message sent. No reply. Another call. Straight to voicemail. They're probably on their way, he said softly, forcing a small smile. Traffic's bad. But even he didn't believe it anymore. The pattern repeated. Days turned into weeks. Promises became shorter, then disappeared entirely. I'll try to stop by. I've got something urgent. Next time, for sure. Next time never came. One night, as a storm rattled against the windows, Michael sat alone again, the hum of machines filling the silence. He glanced at the empty chairs, then back at his mother's tired face. They're not coming, are they? He whispered. This time, he didn't wait for an answer. Because deep down, he already knew. The silence didn't just sit in the hospital room. It followed Michael home, settled into his chest, and eventually, it pushed him to act. That night, he stepped out into the hallway, phone already in his hand. He didn't hesitate this time. He called Rebecca first. She picked up on the third ring. What is it? Her tone was sharp, distracted. Mom's not doing well, Michael said, keeping his voice steady. You should come. Tonight. A pause. Then a quiet exhale on the other end. I can't just drop everything, Michael. Something in him tightened. You haven't been here in 2 weeks. I've been busy. Busy? His voice rose before he could stop it. She's asking about you. Rebecca cut in immediately, colder now. Don't do that. Do what? Don't try to guilt me into this. Michael let out a short, disbelieving breath, pacing slowly under the harsh fluorescent lights. I'm not guilting you. I'm telling you the truth. Another pause. Longer this time. Then she spoke again, slower, more controlled. You chose to stay there, Michael. That was your decision. The words landed harder than anything she'd said before. I didn't choose this alone, he replied, quieter now, but more dangerous. She's our mother. And we all have lives, Rebecca snapped. You don't get to act like you're the only one sacrificing. The line went silent for a second. Michael stopped walking. Then show up, he said. Just once. No answer came back. Just the faint sound of the call disconnecting. And for the first time, it wasn't just absence anymore. It felt like something breaking. When Michael walked back into the room, the air felt different, quieter, heavier, like something had shifted while he was gone. Linda was awake, but not in the usual way. Her eyes were clear, focused, watching him as he approached. You're back, she said softly. I was just outside, he replied, pulling the chair closer. Do you need anything? She didn't answer right away. Instead, her fingers tightened slightly around his hand, weaker than before, but intentional. Michael, she whispered. He leaned in. I'm here. Her gaze didn't waver this time. It held his, searching, almost urgent. You trust them too much. The words caught him off guard. Who? He asked, frowning. She swallowed, breath uneven. Your brother, your sister. Her voice thinned, but she pushed through it. You don't see what I see. Michael shook his head lightly, trying to soften the moment. Mom, it's just stress. You need to rest. But she didn't let go. Listen to me, she insisted, a flicker of strength breaking through the weakness. When I'm gone, you have to be careful. Something in her tone made him pause. Not fear. Certainty. He searched her face, trying to understand what she meant, but she was already fading again, her grip loosening, her eyes drifting. Careful of what? He asked quickly. No answer came. Just the slow, steady sound of the monitor, and a question that didn't leave with her silence. Michael stayed there for a long time after her hand slipped from his. The words echoed, but they didn't settle. Not fully. Not in a way that could change what he still believed. You're just tired, he said quietly, almost as if she could still hear him. You don't mean that. He adjusted the blanket again, slower this time, buying himself a moment to push the thought away. Because if he let it stay, then everything else would start to crack. Outside the room, the hallway lights flickered once. Inside, the machines kept their steady rhythm, grounding him. He sat back down and exhaled. No, he murmured, shaking his head. They wouldn't. Images came to mind, Ethan's calm voice, Rebecca's controlled logic. Not perfect, not always present, but still family. They're just dealing with it differently, he told himself. That's all. It sounded reasonable. It felt safer. Because the alternative? That they could actually do something worse than walking away, something deliberate. Michael didn't go there. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. They're still my brother and sister, he said under his breath. They wouldn't cross that line. But the truth was he didn't know where that line was anymore. And maybe, he didn't want to find out. So tell me, if you were in his place right now, would you start questioning everything, or would you hold on to what's left of your family? The room felt too clean for what it was about to hold. Polished wood, soft lighting, everything carefully arranged, like something important was supposed to happen here. Michael sat across the table, hands resting on his knees, fingers slightly curled, not from fear, but from restraint. Ethan arrived first, casual, almost relaxed. Rebecca followed, composed as always, placing her bag neatly beside her chair before sitting down. No one hugged. No one asked how he was. Let's just get through this, Rebecca said quietly. Michael nodded once. Yeah. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, opened the folder, and began. His voice was steady, practiced, the kind of tone that didn't belong to grief, only to process. Michael didn't expect much. He wasn't there for money. Not really. He just wanted clarity. Something fair. Something that made sense. To my children, the lawyer continued, scanning the page. Michael's eyes lifted slightly. Ethan Carter and Rebecca Carter. A small pause. I leave the entirety of my estate, including the residential property. Michael leaned forward a fraction, almost without realizing it. To be divided equally between them. The words landed softly. Too softly. For a moment, Michael didn't react. It didn't register, not fully. His mind tried to rearrange it, to find the missing piece. Sorry, he said, almost politely. I think you missed something. The lawyer looked up. Excuse me. My name, Michael replied, a faint, uncertain smile forming. It's not there. Silence. Not long. Just enough. The lawyer glanced back at the document, flipping a page, then another. His expression didn't change. No, he said finally. Your name does not appear in this will. The air shifted. Michael blinked once, then again, as if that might reset what he had just heard. That's Not possible, he said, quieter now. There must be another version. Rebecca didn't look at him. Ethan leaned back slightly, exhaling through his nose. This is the most recent document, the lawyer added. Michael's gaze moved from the paper to them. Did you know about this? He asked. Ethan shrugged, not meeting his eyes. Mom made her choices. Michael's chest tightened. After everything, he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. I was there every day. Rebecca finally spoke, her tone even. That doesn't mean anything was promised. Something inside him dropped. Not shattered. Not yet. Just fell. Michael sat back slowly, his hands now resting on the table empty. No anger. No outburst. Just a quiet, disorienting realization settling in. Whatever he thought he had was already gone. For a second, Michael thought one of them would say something, anything, that could soften what had just happened. A correction. A hesitation. Even a glance of discomfort. But neither of them moved. Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms resting loosely, his eyes drifting somewhere past Michael's shoulder as if the conversation didn't quite belong to him. Rebecca, on the other hand, remained perfectly still, her posture straight, her hands folded neatly on the table, but her gaze never met his. Not once. Say something, Michael said, his voice quieter now, but sharper. This doesn't make sense. Ethan exhaled slowly, almost tired. It does, he replied. You just don't like it. Michael stared at him. I was there, he said, the words coming faster now. Every day. I took care of her. You both barely showed up. Rebecca cut in before Ethan could respond. That's not the point. Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. Then what is? Michael asked. She finally looked at him, but only for a second. Long enough to deliver the line, not long enough to feel it. Mom made her decision. The sentence landed clean. Final. Like something already rehearsed. Michael shook his head slightly, disbelief creeping in. You really believe that? He asked. Ethan gave a small shrug, still avoiding eye contact. It's not about belief, he said. It's what's written. Michael leaned forward, searching their faces, trying to find something human in them, some crack, some hesitation that would prove this wasn't real. There has to be more, he insisted. She wouldn't do this without a reason. Rebecca's lips pressed together briefly, then relaxed. Maybe the reason is that you don't know everything, she said. The room felt colder. Not louder. Not more chaotic. Just colder. Michael sat there, caught between what he knew and what they were presenting as truth. And the more they spoke, the clearer it became, not just what they were saying, but what they weren't. No questions. No confusion. No surprise. Only distance. And that distance said more than anything else could. Michael didn't argue right away. He just sat there, staring at the document as if the answer might still be hiding somewhere between the lines. His name wasn't there. Not in the main section. Not in the margins. Not even as an afterthought. That didn't feel right. He leaned forward slightly, eyes narrowing, scanning again. There should be something else, he said quietly, almost to himself. A note. An earlier version. The lawyer shook his head. This is the final, legally binding document. Michael nodded, but the movement felt automatic. His attention had already drifted somewhere else, back to the hospital room, to the way his mother had looked at him that last evening. You trust them too much. The words resurfaced, sharper now. He exhaled slowly, fingers pressing against the edge of the table. No, he murmured under his breath. Something's off. Ethan shifted in his chair. Or maybe you just didn't see things clearly. Michael didn't respond. He wasn't listening anymore, not to them. Because the more he replayed it, the less it fit. His mother's voice. Her hesitation. The way she held his hand, like she was trying to say something she couldn't finish. That wasn't someone making a clean, deliberate decision. That was someone trying to warn him. Michael looked up again, this time not at the paper, but at them. Really looking. Not as family. As variables. And for the first time, a quiet thought formed, uncomfortable, unfinished, but impossible to ignore. What if this wasn't her choice at all? Michael held that thought for only a second, because Rebecca moved first. "We're listing the house," she said, as if they were discussing something routine. Something already decided. Michael blinked. "What?" Ethan leaned forward slightly, finally engaging. "It's the most practical option." "The house is paid off," Michael replied, his voice tightening. "There's no reason to rush anything." Rebecca didn't argue. She simply reached into her bag, pulled out a thin folder, and placed it on the table. "There's already an offer," she said. The words landed faster this time. Sharper. Michael didn't open the folder. He just stared at it. "You can't sell it," he said slowly. "I'm living there." A brief pause. Not hesitation. Just timing. Rebecca met his eyes fully this time, but without warmth. Not anymore. Silence. It hit differently than the will. The will erased him. This removed him. "When?" Michael asked, barely above a whisper. 2 weeks, Ethan answered. "That's more than fair." Michael sat there, unmoving, the room suddenly feeling smaller. Not just excluded. Replaced. And, for the first time, the question in his mind wasn't just what went wrong, but how far they had already gone. The 2 weeks passed faster than Michael expected, because he didn't fight them. That was the part that confused everyone else. He didn't argue again. He didn't call. He didn't try to stop the sale. He just stayed quiet. Packed slowly. One drawer at a time. Like someone who had already accepted the ending before it arrived. The house felt different now. Not empty, just distant. Like it no longer recognized him. On the last morning, the sky was gray, heavy with rain that hadn't started yet. Michael stood in the living room, looking around without really seeing anything. The couch. The hallway. The small crack near the window he had promised to fix. 3 years of memories, reduced to things he couldn't take with him. "Are you done?" Ethan's voice came from behind him. Michael didn't turn around immediately. He just nodded once. "Yeah." Rebecca stepped past him, already checking her watch. "The buyer's coming in an hour. We don't have time to delay." Michael picked up the suitcase by his feet. It was lighter than it should have been. Or maybe everything else just weighed more now. He walked toward the door, each step quiet against the floor that used to feel like his. At the threshold, he paused. Not long. Just enough for something inside him to hesitate. "This is it?" he asked, without looking back. Ethan shrugged. "It's done, Michael." Rebecca didn't say anything. That was the answer. Michael stepped outside. The air was colder than he expected. A drop of rain hit the pavement, then another. Behind him, the door clicked. Not slammed. Not forced. Just closed. Michael stood there for a moment, suitcase in hand, staring ahead at nothing in particular. No anger. No shouting. Just a quiet, hollow space where something used to be. And in that silence, one thought settled in clearer than anything before. They didn't just take the house. They made sure he had nowhere left to return. The first place Michael went wasn't far. Just a small motel off the highway, the kind people don't ask questions in. He paid for one night in cash, the receptionist barely looking up as she slid the key across the counter. "Room 12, she said. That was it. No conversation. No recognition. No trace of who he had been just hours ago. Inside, the room smelled faintly of detergent and something older beneath it. A single bed. A flickering lamp. Thin curtains that didn't quite close all the way. Michael set his suitcase down near the wall and stood there for a moment, unsure what to do next. It was quiet. Too quiet. He reached for his phone. Scrolled through contacts. Names he hadn't spoken to in months, some in years. His thumb hovered over one, then another. "Hey, it's me," he finally said after one call connected, forcing his voice to stay even. "I just needed a place for a few days." A pause. Then an apology. Polite. Distant. "I wish I could, man. Things are complicated right now." The call ended. He tried another. Same result. Different words, same distance. "I'm sorry, Michael. I've got family here. I can't get involved." Each response landed softer than the last, but somehow cut deeper. By the time the room went dark outside, the list of people he thought he could rely on had quietly disappeared. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, phone loose in his hand. "No one," he whispered, not bitter, just stating it. No anger. No blame. Just absence. For a long time, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he leaned back, staring up at the ceiling where the light buzzed faintly. "They took everything," he said under his breath. A beat. His eyes closed, then opened again, sharper this time. But this isn't over. And for the first time since he walked out of that house, something inside him didn't feel empty anymore. The words stayed in the room long after he said them. This isn't over. But the moment the silence came back, heavier this time, something inside Michael finally cracked. He sat up slowly, elbows on his knees again, hands pressed together so tightly his knuckles turned pale. For hours, he had held everything in, every reaction, every question, every piece of disbelief. Now there was nowhere left to put it. "Why me?" he whispered. No answer. Just the faint hum of the light above him. He let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but there was nothing behind it. "I did everything right." The words came out sharper this time, louder than he expected, bouncing slightly off the walls. "I stayed. I paid. I showed up." His voice dropped again, uneven now. "And they just erased me?" Images started to flood back. His mother's hand in his, the empty chairs, the phone calls that went nowhere. Every moment he had ignored, every sign he had softened into something easier to accept. Michael pressed his hands against his face, eyes shut tight. No, this doesn't make sense." His chest rose and fell faster now, the control slipping. "They didn't even hesitate," he said, almost to himself. "Not once." That part hit harder than anything else. Not the loss. Not the house. But how easy it had been for them. His hands dropped slowly, his eyes opening again, red, but steady. "What did I miss?" he asked quietly. The question hung there unanswered, but it didn't disappear this time. Because deep down, something was shifting, not just pain, but clarity pushing through it. And for the first time, the question wasn't just why this happened. It was whether it had been happening all along. For a while, Michael didn't move. The question lingered in the air, heavy, unanswered, almost pulling him back into that same hollow space he had just fallen through. But this time, it didn't take him all the way down. He inhaled slowly, then exhaled, longer, steadier. His fingers loosened. The tension didn't disappear, it shifted. "All right," he said quietly, almost like he was speaking to someone sitting across from him. "If I missed something, then I need to find it." That was new. Not denial. Not pain. Direction. He reached for his phone again, but instead of scrolling through contacts, he opened something else, old messages, old photos, anything that might still hold a trace of what didn't make sense. Because the more he thought about it, the less it felt like a sudden betrayal. It felt prepared. The timing. The will. The way neither Ethan nor Rebecca reacted. No surprise. No confusion. Just readiness. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees again, eyes narrowing, not with anger this time, but focus. "They knew," he whispered. A small realization, but it changed everything. If they knew, then this didn't start at the lawyer's office. It started much earlier. And if that was true, then there was something they didn't want him to see. The room didn't feel as empty anymore. Not because anything had been restored, but because something had been uncovered. A direction. A thread. Michael stood up slowly, walking toward his suitcase, then stopping halfway, like a thought had just caught up with him. "They thought I'd walk away," he said under his breath. A beat. His eyes lifted, sharper now. "But I haven't even started looking." And right there, in that quiet shift, something changed. Not louder. Not dramatic. Just intentional. "So let me ask you, if you were in his place, what's the first thing you would look for?" One word. Just one. Drop it in the comments. Michael didn't start with anything complicated. No big plan. No dramatic move. Just going back through what was left. The suitcase sat open on the bed, half unpacked, clothes pushed aside without care. He wasn't looking for anything specific, at least. That's what he told himself. But his hands kept moving, slower now, more deliberate. "There has to be something," he murmured. A receipt. Old prescriptions. A folded hospital document. Nothing that answered the question building in his mind. He paused, fingers hovering over the bottom of the bag. Something felt off. Not visible. Just a slight resistance, like the fabric wasn't sitting right. Michael frowned and reached deeper, pressing against the lining. There. A faint outline. His pulse picked up, just a little. Wait. He turned the suitcase toward the light, running his fingers along the inner seam until he found a small tear, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. He wasn't sure why, but he pulled. The lining gave way just enough. And inside, something slid forward. A thin envelope. Michael froze. It wasn't addressed. No name. No markings. Just plain, sealed, and hidden where no one would casually find it. He stared at it for a long second, not opening it yet. Because suddenly, everything before this moment rearranged itself. His mother's voice. "You trust them too much." Her hand tightening around his. "You have to be careful." This wasn't random. This wasn't forgotten. It was placed. Michael exhaled slowly, turning the envelope over in his hands. "Mom," he whispered. The room felt smaller again, but not empty. Focused. Whatever was inside this, it wasn't just information. It was intention. And for the first time since everything fell apart, he wasn't guessing anymore. He was getting closer. Michael didn't open the envelope right away. He sat there, holding it, feeling the weight of something that shouldn't have existed and yet did. "Okay," he whispered, more to steady himself than anything else. Then he broke the seal. Inside, there was no letter. No explanation. just a small USB drive. For a second, confusion flickered across his face. Then something deeper followed: recognition. This wasn't meant to be read. It was meant to be seen. Michael reached for the laptop on the table, hands slower now, more careful. He plugged it in, the screen lighting up in the dim room. The USB clicked into place with a soft, almost insignificant sound. The folder opened. One file. No name. Just a timestamp. His cursor hovered over it. "Whatever this is," he murmured, breath shallow, "it matters." He clicked. The screen flickered once, then steadied. At first, it was just a room. Hospital walls. Pale light. The angle slightly off, like the camera had been hidden. Michael leaned closer without realizing it. Then the frame shifted. And he saw her. His mother. Sitting on the bed, weaker than he remembered, shoulders slumped, eyes tired, but awake. Alert. "Mom." The words slipped out of him, barely a sound. She looked toward something off camera. Not afraid. Not yet. Just waiting. A voice followed. "Rebecca." Clear. Controlled. "You just need to sign this." Michael's breath caught. The camera angle tilted slightly, revealing the edge of a document being placed in front of Linda. Her hand didn't move toward it. "I don't understand," Linda said softly. Ethan stepped into view next. "Not fully. Just enough." "It's routine," he added. "We're helping you organize things." Michael's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "That's not how she talks," he whispered. "That's not how she agrees." On screen, Linda shook her head faintly. "Where's Michael?" she asked. The room on the video shifted again, this time colder. Rebecca didn't answer the question. Instead, she leaned in slightly, voice lower, sharper. "He doesn't need to be here." Michael froze. Ethan glanced toward the door, then back. "Mom, we don't have time for this." There was a pause. Not long, but enough. Enough for something to change. Linda's hand trembled as it rested near the paper. "I want him here," she insisted, weaker now but still clear. Rebecca's expression hardened. "Sign it," she said. No softness left. "Or we stop paying for the treatment." Silence. Michael stopped breathing. The sound in the motel room disappeared, replaced by the faint static from the video. On screen, Linda didn't respond right away. Her eyes shifted, uncertain, searching, then settling into something else. Not agreement. Resignation. Michael's voice broke. "No, no, don't." But it had already happened. Her hand moved. Slow. Unsteady. The pen touched the paper. Signed. Michael pushed back from the table slightly, as if distance could undo what he had just seen. No, the video didn't stop. Linda leaned back, exhausted, her eyes closing for a moment, then opening again, this time looking directly toward the hidden camera. And for a brief second, it felt like she was looking at him. "If you're seeing this," she said, voice barely holding together, "then I was right." Michael leaned forward again, heart pounding. "They're not telling you the truth." The screen went dark. No transition. No warning. Just gone. The room snapped back into place around him, but nothing felt the same. Michael didn't move. Didn't speak. Because whatever doubt he had been holding onto was gone. Replaced by something far more dangerous. Certainty. The darkness on the screen didn't fade, it stayed, reflecting his own face back at him. For a moment, Michael didn't blink. Not because he was frozen. Because something inside him had just locked into place. He leaned back slowly, the chair creaking under the shift, his hands resting on the edge of the table again, But this time, they were steady. "No," he said quietly, almost correcting himself. Then he shook his head once. "That's not it." His eyes lifted, sharper now, no trace of confusion left. "They didn't just lie." A pause. His jaw tightened slightly. They knew exactly what they were doing. The difference mattered. Because this wasn't about misunderstanding anymore. Not about distance or different choices or even neglect. This was deliberate. Planned. Executed. Michael let out a slow breath, his gaze drifting back to the dark screen, replaying the moment, the hesitation, the pressure, the threat. Rebecca's voice. Ethan standing there, saying nothing. They stood there, he murmured. They watched her break. The words didn't come out with anger. They came out flat. Cold. And that was worse. Because anger could pass. This wouldn't. Michael leaned forward again, elbows on his knees, fingers loosely interlocked now, not tense, not shaking. Focused. They didn't just take the house, he said under his breath. Another pause. His eyes narrowed slightly. They betrayed her. And in that realization, something final settled in. Not pain. Not shock. A line. Clear. Uncrossable. Whatever hesitation he had left was gone. Michael didn't react the way most people would. No shouting. No throwing things. No desperate call to confront them. That part never came. Instead, he sat there, staring at the black screen, letting the silence settle. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was building something. Slowly. Quietly. His fingers tightened just enough to leave faint marks against his skin, then relaxed again. "All right," he said under his breath. Not loud. Not emotional. Controlled. He reached for the laptop, replaying a few seconds of the video, not the whole thing, just a fragment. Rebecca's voice. The hesitation. The moment before the signature. He paused it. Right there. "Say it again," he murmured, as if the screen could respond. But it didn't need to. He had already heard enough. Michael leaned back, eyes half-lidded now, not from exhaustion, but from focus narrowing in. "They thought I wouldn't see this," he said. A small shift. They thought it would end there. That word stayed with him, end. Because for them, it was already finished. Clean. Closed. For him, it hadn't even started. His jaw tightened, just slightly. Not anger spilling over. Something held back. Something measured. "They made a move," he continued quietly. "Now I understand it." A beat. His gaze sharpened. "Which means I can answer it." And right there, in that stillness, something new took shape. Not rage unleashed. Rage contained. Waiting. Michael reached for his phone. For a brief second, everything pointed in one direction. Call the police. Hand over the video. End it quickly. That would have been the obvious move. The clean move. His thumb hovered over the screen. He stared at it. "They forced her," he murmured. "That's enough." It should have been enough. He could already picture it. Officers, statements, the shock on Ethan and Rebecca's faces when everything collapsed in a matter of hours. Fast. Direct. Final. But something didn't sit right. Michael lowered the phone slowly, his eyes narrowing just a fraction. "No," he whispered. Because the more he thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a moment of pressure captured on video. This had been planned, prepared, executed without hesitation. And if they were capable of that, then a single move wouldn't be enough. "They didn't just take advantage of her," he said quietly. "They built this." His grip tightened slightly around the phone, then relaxed. Control returned. Calling the police would stop them. But it wouldn't expose everything. It wouldn't show how far they had gone, or how easily they had done it. Michael placed the phone face down on the table, not rejecting the idea, postponing it. "They think it's over," he said, his voice steady now. "They think I'm out." A small pause. His eyes lifted, focused. Good. Because for the first time since he left that house, Michael wasn't reacting anymore. He was choosing. The next morning, Michael checked out of the motel without leaving a trace. No forwarding address. No messages. No calls returned. Just gone. The receptionist didn't even look up as he slid the key across the counter. "You're all set," she said. Michael nodded once and walked out. Outside, the air felt sharper, clearer, like something had been stripped away overnight. He didn't go back. Not to the house. Not to anyone who might recognize him. His phone stayed off. Not silent. Off. Hours turned into days. Then into something harder to measure. No one heard from him. No one saw him. Even the few people who might have noticed didn't have enough to go on. Ethan called once. Straight to voicemail. Rebecca didn't try again. To them, it made sense. He couldn't handle it, Ethan said one evening, leaning back with a quiet confidence. He just walked away. Rebecca didn't argue. "That's what he does," she replied. "He avoids." And just like that, the story closed in their minds. Michael Carter, gone. Finished. No threat. Exactly how they needed it to be. But somewhere else, far from their assumptions, Michael stood in front of a different kind of door, one that didn't belong to his past. He paused for a second, then reached for the handle. Not running. Not hiding. Just stepping out of sight and letting them believe he had disappeared. The office didn't look impressive from the outside. Just a narrow building, glass door, name in small letters. Daniel Brooks, attorney at law. Michael stood there for a moment, hand on the handle, then pushed it open. Inside, everything was precise. Clean. Quiet in a different way than the motel, this silence had purpose. Daniel didn't look up immediately. He finished reading the page in front of him, then closed the folder with a soft tap. "You're early," he said. Michael frowned slightly. "We had an appointment?" Daniel finally met his eyes. Studied him. "No," he replied calmly. "But people who walk in like you don't come for small problems." A pause. Michael stepped closer, placing the USB on the desk. "I need to know what this is worth," he said. Daniel didn't touch it right away. "Worth?" he repeated. "Financially or legally?" Michael held his gaze. "Enough to destroy them." That got a reaction. Not shock. Interest. Daniel leaned back slightly, then reached for the USB, turning it once between his fingers. "Strong statement," he said. "Usually made without evidence." "Watch it." No hesitation in Michael's voice. Daniel nodded, plugged it into his computer, and played the file. The room changed. Not in sound. In focus. Daniel didn't interrupt. Didn't react outwardly. He just watched every second, every detail. Rebecca's voice. The hesitation. The threat. When it ended, he didn't speak immediately. He removed the USB, placed it carefully on the table, then leaned forward. "How many copies of this exist?" "Just that one." Daniel's eyes sharpened. "Good." Michael frowned. "Good." "Yes," Daniel said evenly. "Because that means control." A beat. Michael crossed his arms slightly. "So?" Daniel steepled his fingers. "So this isn't just fraud," he said. "This is coercion. Possibly elder abuse. And, if documented properly, criminal liability." Michael didn't move. "Can we win?" he asked. Daniel's expression didn't change, but something in his tone did. "This isn't about winning," he said quietly. "It's about how far you want to go." Silence. Short. Focused. Michael leaned in just enough. "They took everything," he said. "And they think it's over." Daniel gave a small nod. "Then we don't start with the police." Michael didn't react, just watched. "We build first," Daniel continued. "We let them stay comfortable. Let them believe their version of the story." Another pause. "Then, and when it collapses, it doesn't crack." His eyes locked onto Michael's. "It breaks." Michael held that gaze for a second, then nodded once. For the first time since everything began, he wasn't alone. And more importantly, he wasn't guessing anymore. Michael didn't ask what to do next. He waited. That was the first change. Daniel noticed it immediately. "Good," he said, leaning back slightly. "You're not reacting anymore." Michael's eyes stayed on him. "Tell me how this works." Daniel tapped the USB lightly against the table once, twice. "We don't confront them," he said. "Not yet." Michael didn't interrupt. "We let them believe the version they've already chosen," Daniel continued. "That you're gone. That you accepted it. That you're not a problem anymore." A small pause. Michael nodded once. "They already think that." "Exactly," Daniel replied. "So we don't change it." That landed. Because for the first time, doing nothing wasn't weakness. It was positioning. Michael leaned forward slightly. "And while they're comfortable?" Daniel's mouth curved faintly, not quite a smile. "We build." He reached for a folder, sliding it across the desk. "Property records. Bank movements. Hospital staff. Anything that connects pressure to outcome." Michael flipped it open, scanning quickly. "They won't see it coming," he said. "They won't even look," Daniel corrected. "People who think they've already won, stop checking." That was the shift. Not revenge fueled by emotion. Revenge built on assumption. Michael closed the folder slowly. "So I disappear," he said. Daniel shook his head. "No," he replied. "You become irrelevant." A beat. "That's more dangerous." Michael let that settle. Because disappearing meant hiding. Irrelevant meant being ignored. And ignored people weren't watched. "They'll move faster," Michael said. "Sell everything. Close it clean." Daniel nodded. "Which gives us a timeline." Michael's eyes sharpened. "And when we move?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "When they're fully committed to the lie." Silence held for a second, tight, controlled. Michael exhaled slowly. "They think I walked away," he said. Daniel met his gaze. "Then let them watch you walk." A quiet understanding passed between them. Not dramatic. Not loud. Precise. Michael stood up, the folder in his hand now. "No calls," Daniel added. "No contact. No reaction." Michael nodded. "Let them talk," Daniel finished. "Let them close the story without you." Michael turned toward the door, then paused. "And when it's time?" Daniel's voice didn't rise. "We don't argue." A beat. "We reveal." Michael held that for a second, then walked out. And somewhere, far from that office, Ethan and Rebecca were already living inside the version of reality they had created. Confident. Untouched. Certain. Exactly where Michael needed them to be. Michael didn't go back to the house. He didn't need to. From a distance, it was enough. The first time he saw it again, he was sitting in a parked car across the street, engine off, hands resting loosely on the steering wheel. The lights were on inside. Movement behind the curtains. Familiar, but no longer his. He watched in silence. Not long. Just enough to understand the rhythm. "They're already settling in," he murmured. Later that day, Daniel's voice came through the phone, brief, precise. "Don't stay in one place too long," he said. "You're not observing them. You're mapping patterns." Michael adjusted in his seat, eyes still fixed on the house. "Got it." Click. The next few days became a routine. Different angles. Different times. Early mornings when the street was empty. Late evenings when shadows stretched across the windows. He didn't get close. He didn't need to hear conversations. What mattered was behavior. Ethan leaving at the same hour each morning. Rebecca returning later, always alone, always on the phone, pacing before going inside. Deliveries. Documents. A real estate agent visiting twice in 1 week. Michael noted everything. Not on paper. In memory. "They're moving fast," he said quietly one night, watching Rebecca speak with someone at the door, her gestures sharper, more urgent. That urgency told him something. Not fear. Pressure. He leaned back slightly, narrowing his eyes. "They want this closed." A small shift in understanding, but it changed the pace. Because if they were rushing, they might miss something. Michael reached for his phone, snapping a quick photo, not of them, but of the agent's car, the license plate catching the streetlight. Details. Small. Quiet. Useful. He lowered the phone again, blending back into stillness. From the outside, nothing about him stood out. Just another parked car. Just another passerby. But inside, everything was tightening, piece by piece. And somewhere in that pattern, something was about to slip. From the outside, everything looked normal. That was the first mistake. Inside the house, the tension that once filled every room had faded, replaced by something lighter, almost careless. The lights stayed on later. Music played in the background. Conversations stretched longer, no longer cut short by caution. Ethan leaned back on the couch, a glass in his hand, scrolling through his phone with a slow, satisfied rhythm. "It's done," he said, not looking up. "Paperwork's clean. No issues." Rebecca stood near the kitchen counter, flipping through a stack of documents, her movements sharp but relaxed in a way they hadn't been before. "Of course it is," she replied. "We handled it." A small pause. Ethan smirked faintly. "Still, I thought he'd push back more." Rebecca didn't answer right away. She set the papers down, picked up her drink, and took a slow sip. "He doesn't have anything to push with," she said. That landed like a conclusion. Not a question. Ethan nodded, leaning his head back. "Yeah, I guess that's true." Outside, a car passed, headlights sweeping briefly across the window, then disappearing. Neither of them noticed. Rebecca walked toward the living room, heels clicking softly against the floor that no longer held any trace of hesitation. "He walked away," she continued. "That tells you everything." Ethan let out a quiet laugh. "Honestly, I expected more drama." Rebecca glanced at him, one eyebrow lifting slightly. "You always do." Another beat. Ethan raised his glass just slightly, as if marking the moment without saying it outright. "To clean endings," he said. Rebecca didn't toast. But she didn't stop him either. Instead, she picked up the folder again, flipping to the last page, scanning it once more, not because she doubted it, but because she wanted to feel it was finished. "Everything transfers tomorrow," she said. Ethan nodded, satisfied. "Good." Silence followed, but not the heavy kind. This one was easy. Comfortable. The kind that only exists when people believe there's nothing left to worry about. And that belief settled in deeper with every passing second. No calls. No messages. No sign of Michael. Just absence. permanent in their minds. Ethan leaned forward slightly, placing his glass down, stretching his arms as if something had finally lifted. "You know what the best part is," he said. Rebecca didn't look up. "What?" He smiled. "It's over." Another pause. Rebecca closed the folder, this time with finality. "Yes," she said. And for the first time since everything began, they both believed it. Completely. That nothing was coming back. That nothing was watching. That nothing was waiting. And that quiet certainty was exactly what made it dangerous. The closing didn't take long. That was the part Rebecca liked the most. No delays. No complications. Just signatures, confirmations, and a quiet transfer of ownership that erased everything that came before it. The office was brighter than necessary, sunlight cutting across the polished table as the final documents were placed in front of them. "Everything is in order," the agent said, sliding the papers forward. "Once you sign here, the transaction is complete." Ethan didn't hesitate. He picked up the pen immediately, glancing at Rebecca with a faint, satisfied look. "Told you it'd be smooth," he said. Rebecca didn't smile, but there was something sharper in her expression now, confidence settling into place. "It always is when you control the variables," she replied. Ethan signed first. Quick. Clean. No pause. Rebecca followed, her movements slower, not uncertain, just deliberate. She scanned the last page one more time, then added her signature with a steady hand. And, just like that, it was done. The agent collected the documents, nodding politely. "Congratulations," he said. "The funds will be transferred within the hour." Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling as if something had officially ended. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it," the agent confirmed. Rebecca gathered the remaining papers, stacking them neatly, aligning every edge. "Good," she said. No hesitation. No second thought. Outside, the street moved as usual, cars passing, people walking, life continuing without interruption. Inside, something far more final had just happened. Ethan stood up, stretching his arms slightly. "Honestly," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice, "I expected at least one complication." Rebecca glanced at him briefly. "You expected resistance," she corrected. "There wasn't any." Ethan smirked. "Exactly." A short silence followed, but it wasn't reflective. It was satisfied. The kind of quiet that comes when everything goes exactly as planned. Ethan picked up his phone, already scrolling. "So what now?" he asked. Rebecca didn't look up. "Now we move on. Simple. Clean. Closed." The funds hit their account faster than expected. Ethan checked twice, then laughed under his breath. "It's real," he said. "It actually went through." Rebecca took the phone, glanced once, then handed it back without comment. Of course it did. There was never any doubt. And that certainty kept growing. Not cautious. Not careful. Confident. Untouchable. Because in their minds, every loose end had been tied off. Every risk removed. Every problem handled. Michael was gone. The house was sold. The money was theirs. And with each passing moment, that belief hardened into something more dangerous than victory, arrogance. The kind that doesn't look over its shoulder. The kind that doesn't question silence. The kind that forgets, just because nothing has happened yet, doesn't mean nothing is coming. Across the street, nothing looked out of place. That was the point. Michael stood just far enough to blend in, near a row of parked cars, one hand in his coat pocket, the other holding a phone that stayed dark. From where he was, the real estate office was clearly visible through the glass. He didn't need to be closer. Inside, Ethan was laughing. Not loudly, but enough. Michael watched the small details. The way Ethan leaned back, shoulders loose, no tension left in his posture. The way Rebecca moved precise, controlled, but lighter now, like the weight she carried before had finally lifted. They believe it, Michael said quietly. No anger. Just observation. Behind him, Daniel stepped into frame, stopping a few feet away, not drawing attention. They should, Daniel replied. You gave them exactly what they expected. Michael didn't turn. His eyes stayed on the glass. They signed everything, he said. Yes. The transfer is complete. Yes. A small pause. Michael's jaw shifted slightly, not tight, not relaxed. Measured. And the buyer? Daniel stepped closer now, lowering his voice. On paper, exactly who they think. That was enough. Michael's gaze sharpened just a fraction. Inside the office, Rebecca handed back a folder, her expression calm, almost satisfied. The agent nodded, shaking hands, sealing the moment. From their side of the glass, it looked final. Closed. Finished. Michael tilted his head slightly, studying the reflection more than the scene itself. They didn't question anything, he said. They had no reason to, Daniel answered. You removed every signal that would make them doubt. Another pause. Then, they won't look back. Michael exhaled slowly. Good. Because looking back was the only way they might have seen him. A car door shut somewhere down the street. A passerby walked between him and the window for a second, breaking the line of sight. When the view cleared again, nothing inside had changed. Ethan still smiling. Rebecca still composed. Certain. Michael finally shifted his weight, stepping back half a pace, not retreating, just adjusting position. They think they closed the story, he said. Daniel's response came without delay. Then we control how it reopens. Michael nodded once. Subtle. Final. And for the first time since the will was read, he wasn't standing outside of what they built. He was standing behind it. Where they couldn't see. Where they couldn't predict. Where every move they made was already part of something larger. The balance hadn't shifted loudly. No confrontation. No reveal. Just a quiet, precise change in position. And from where Michael stood now, they weren't ahead anymore. They just didn't know it yet. The paperwork was already signed. That was what made it feel final. Inside the office, the agent gathered the last set of documents, tapping them neatly into place before sliding one copy across the table. For your records, he said. Rebecca reached for it first, flipping through with a quick, practiced motion. Ethan leaned over slightly, not reading, just confirming. Everything matches, he asked. It does, Rebecca replied. Price, transfer date, ownership structure. She paused for a fraction of a second, not because something was wrong, but because something caught her eye. Wait. Ethan glanced at her. What? She didn't answer immediately. Her fingers moved back a page, slower this time. What is it? Ethan pressed. Rebecca narrowed her eyes slightly, reading more carefully now. The buyer entity, she said, almost to herself. This wasn't the name we saw before. Ethan leaned in closer. What do you mean? The agent looked up, calm, unfazed. It's held under a private acquisition structure, he explained. That's not unusual. Rebecca didn't look at him. Her attention stayed locked on the page. Who owns it? She asked. The agent gave a small, professional smile. That information isn't publicly disclosed at this stage. Ethan exhaled, dismissive. Does it matter? We got paid. Maybe it should have ended there. But it didn't. Rebecca's fingers tightened slightly on the paper. "No," she said slowly. "I want to know who signed this." The agent hesitated, not long, but enough. Then he reached for another document. A secondary page. One that hadn't been part of the main stack. "This is the authorized signature on behalf of the buyer," he said. He turned it toward them. For a second, neither of them reacted, because their minds hadn't caught up yet. Then Ethan leaned closer. "Who?" He stopped. Rebecca didn't move at all. Her eyes stayed fixed on the name. Michael Carter. Silence. Not confusion. Not disbelief. Just a sudden, sharp stillness, as if the room itself had tightened. "That's not possible," Ethan said first, but his voice had already lost its edge. Rebecca didn't respond. She was still staring, reading it again. And again. Michael Carter. The same name. The same signature. Clear. Verified. Legal. "No," Ethan shook his head slightly. "He doesn't have that kind of money." The agent didn't interrupt. Didn't correct. Because the document already had. Rebecca finally lifted her head, but not toward Ethan. Toward the glass. Toward the outside. As if, for the first time, she was actually looking. Across the street, nothing seemed different. Cars passing. People moving. Reflections shifting in the sunlight. Normal. Completely normal. But something had changed. Quietly. Precisely. Behind them. "He didn't walk away," Rebecca said, her voice lower now. Ethan didn't answer. Because the truth had already settled in, not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to shift everything they thought they understood. They hadn't closed the story. They had signed it over. And somewhere, just out of sight, Michael was no longer the one left outside. He was already inside. Waiting. Rebecca didn't speak for several seconds after that. Not because she didn't understand. Because she understood too quickly. Ethan was the first to move, grabbing the document again, scanning it as if repetition could change the result. "This has to be some kind of proxy," he said, voice tightening. "A front." He could. Rebecca cut in, her tone lower now, controlled but sharper than before. "Or someone made it possible." That shifted something. Not panic, but pressure. Ethan looked up. "Then we find out who." Rebecca didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted back to the glass, then down to the paper again, connecting pieces that weren't supposed to fit. "He wants us to know," she said quietly. Ethan frowned. Why would he do that? A beat. Rebecca exhaled slowly. "Because this isn't about the house anymore." That landed. And suddenly, the room didn't feel finished. It felt staged. Ethan reached for his phone. "I'm calling him." "No," Rebecca said instantly. Ethan froze. "What?" "Don't call him." "Why not?" "Because that's exactly what he expects." Silence stretched between them, tight, precise. Ethan lowered the phone slightly, still gripping it. "So what, we just wait?" Rebecca's eyes sharpened. "No," she said. "We respond." "But not like that." She turned back to the agent. "I need the contact information tied to this entity," she said. "Whoever handled the acquisition." The agent hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I can provide the legal representative." "Do it." Minutes later, a name. A number. Not Michael. Daniel Brooks. Ethan scoffed under his breath. A lawyer. Rebecca didn't react. She was already dialing. The line rang once. Twice. Then Daniel Brooks, came the voice on the other end, calm, prepared. Rebecca didn't introduce herself. "You know why I'm calling." A pause. Short. Intentional. "Yes," Daniel replied. "I assumed you would." Ethan leaned closer, trying to catch every word. Rebecca's voice didn't rise. Where is he? Another pause. Then, that depends, Daniel said. On how this conversation goes. The air tightened. Rebecca's grip on the phone didn't change, but something behind her eyes did. We're not playing games, she said. A quiet response came back. Neither is he. Silence again. Different this time. Heavier. Rebecca finally spoke, slower now. Then said it. Ethan glanced at her. Said what? She didn't look at him. The meeting. On the other end, Daniel didn't hesitate. Tomorrow, he said. One location. One conversation. Rebecca's jaw set. Fine. The call ended. Ethan exhaled sharply. You think he's actually going to show? Rebecca picked up the document again, eyes scanning that same name one more time. Michael Carter. He already has, she said. And somewhere else, far from their certainty, Michael was no longer waiting. He was deciding how the next move would land. The office was quieter than usual. Not empty, but contained. Like the space itself understood what was about to happen. Rebecca arrived first. She didn't sit immediately. Instead, she stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the reflection rather than the street below. Ethan came in a minute later, closing the door a little harder than necessary. You think he'll actually show? He asked. Rebecca didn't turn. He set this up. He'll be here. A beat. Ethan exhaled, pacing once across the room before stopping near the table. I don't like this, he muttered. This whole thing. The door opened. No warning knock. No hesitation. Both of them turned at the same time. Michael stepped in. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just present. For a second, no one spoke. Because everything they had assumed, everything they had closed off, was now standing right in front of them. You look surprised, Michael said, his voice calm, almost even. Ethan scoffed, recovering first. You've got some nerve showing up like this. Michael didn't respond to that. His attention shifted to Rebecca instead. She was watching him closely now, not with shock, but with calculation. You planned this, she said. Michael gave a small nod. I adjusted. That answer lingered. Ethan stepped forward slightly. Cut the vague talk. What do you want? Michael walked past him without reacting, placing a folder on the table with a soft, deliberate motion. What I want, he repeated. A pause. Then he looked up. Clarity. Rebecca's eyes flicked to the folder, but she didn't touch it. You already have it, she said. The house is sold. The money's transferred. Michael tilted his head slightly. That's what you think this is about? The tension shifted. Subtly, but enough. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then say it. Michael didn't raise his voice. You forced her. Silence. Sharp. Immediate. Rebecca didn't deny it. Not directly. You don't understand the situation she was in, she said, tone controlled. Michael's expression didn't change. I understand exactly what I saw. Another pause. This one heavier. Ethan looked between them, then let out a short breath. So what? You're here to threaten us? Michael's gaze moved to him. No, he said. I'm here to give you a choice. That word landed differently. Rebecca finally stepped forward, placing her hand on the edge of the table, but still not opening the folder. What kind of choice? She asked. Michael met her eyes. The kind you didn't give her. Silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It was loaded. Because for the first time, they weren't in control of the room anymore. Michael didn't move. Didn't push. He just stood there, letting the weight of what he knew settle in. And that was enough. For now. Michael didn't open the folder. That was the first move. He let it sit there, right in the center of the table, visible, untouched, heavy with implication. Rebecca noticed. Of course she did. You're not going to show us what's inside, she asked, her tone controlled, but her eyes sharper now. Michael leaned back slightly, just enough to create distance. I don't need to, he replied. A pause. Ethan frowned. Then what is this? A bluff. Michael's gaze shifted to him steady. If it was a bluff, he said quietly, you wouldn't be asking that. That landed. Ethan didn't answer. Because the question had already exposed something, uncertainty. Rebecca stepped in before it could grow. You said we have a choice, she said. So explain it. Michael nodded once, slow. I will, he said. But first, I want to understand something. He let the sentence hang just long enough. Rebecca didn't move. What? She asked. Michael's eyes stayed on her. When you told her to sign, he said, voice calm, almost neutral, did you think she wouldn't remember? Silence. Not loud. Not dramatic. But precise. Ethan shifted his weight. Careful, Michael. Michael raised a hand slightly. Not aggressive. Just enough to stop him. I'm not finished. The interruption worked. Ethan went quiet. Rebecca didn't respond immediately. Her expression didn't crack, but something behind it tightened. You're assuming a lot, she said. Michael tilted his head. No, he replied. I'm recalling. Another pause. This time longer. More deliberate. Rebecca's fingers pressed lightly against the edge of the table. You think you can walk in here, she said slowly, throw accusations around, and what? Control the outcome. Michael didn't react to the tone. I'm not controlling anything, he said. I'm letting it unfold. That shifted the pressure again. Because control can be challenged. But inevitability? That's harder to fight. Ethan let out a short breath. This is ridiculous. If you have something, say it. Michael looked at him. Then back at Rebecca. I already did, he said. A beat. Then, you just haven't accepted it yet. Rebecca's jaw tightened slightly. Accepted what? Michael leaned forward now, just a fraction. That you made a decision, he said. And now you don't get to choose how it ends. The words didn't rise. They settled. And that made them heavier. Ethan stepped forward again. You don't decide that. Michael didn't look at him. No, he said. You already did. Silence followed. But it wasn't empty. It was working. Slowly. Pressing into every gap they hadn't prepared for. Rebecca glanced at the folder again. Still closed. Still untouched. And that was the problem. Because whatever was inside wasn't the threat. The fact that Michael didn't need to open it was. Michael let the silence stretch just a second longer, long enough for the pressure to settle, not long enough for it to break. Then he reached into his pocket. Slowly. Deliberately. Ethan's eyes followed the movement first. Rebecca didn't move, but her attention sharpened instantly. Michael placed something small on the table. A USB drive. No label. No explanation. Just there. And somehow, heavier than anything he had said. Ethan let out a short, disbelieving breath. What is that supposed to be? Michael didn't answer immediately. He adjusted it slightly with his fingers, aligning it with the edge of the folder, as if positioning mattered. You've seen something like this before, he said quietly. Rebecca's expression didn't change, but her hand, resting on the table, stilled completely. That doesn't mean anything, she replied. Michael looked at her. Not directly challenging. Just confirming. Are you sure? A pause. Small. But it cracked the rhythm. Ethan stepped closer, his voice sharper now. If you're trying to scare us, you're wasting your time. Michael's gaze shifted to him. I'm not trying to scare you. Another beat. I'm giving you a chance. That word again. Chance. Rebecca finally moved, her fingers brushing the edge of the USB, but she didn't pick it up. What's on it? She asked. Michael leaned back slightly. You already know. The air changed. Not louder. Not faster. Just tighter. Ethan shook his head. No, we don't. Michael's voice stayed level. Then plug it in. No one moved. Because suddenly, the object in front of them wasn't just evidence. It was a decision. Rebecca's eyes stayed on it, her thoughts moving faster now, calculating outcomes, consequences, timelines. If this is what I think it is, she said slowly, you wouldn't be here. You'd be at the police. Michael nodded once. That would have been easier. A pause. Rebecca looked up. Then why aren't you? Michael didn't hesitate. Because I want you to understand it first. That landed deeper than a threat. Understanding meant awareness. Awareness meant responsibility. Ethan laughed under his breath, but it didn't hold. This proves nothing, he said. Even if there's something on it, Michael cut in, not raising his voice. It proves enough. Silence followed. He let it sit. Then added, and it's not the only copy. That changed everything. Rebecca's head snapped up slightly, not visibly to anyone else, but enough. You said, she started, then stopped. Michael watched her carefully. I said what I needed to say, he replied. The implications settled in slowly, like something unavoidable. Not just exposure. Control of exposure. Rebecca's fingers withdrew from the USB. For the first time, she didn't try to mask the shift. You're playing a dangerous game, she said. Michael's expression didn't change. No, he answered. I'm ending one. And right there, with that small, silent device sitting between them, the room tilted. Not visibly, but completely. Because now, it wasn't about what had happened. It was about what could happen next. And none of them could ignore it anymore. For a moment, no one reached for the USB. That was the tension. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just suspended. Ethan glanced at Rebecca, waiting for her to move first. Rebecca didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on the small device, as if it might shift on its own, reveal something without being touched. Go ahead, Michael said quietly. Or don't. The choice hung there. Simple. But not easy. Ethan exhaled sharply, stepping closer. This is ridiculous, he muttered, but his hand didn't move either. Because the second it was plugged in, everything changed. Rebecca finally lifted her gaze, not to the USB, but to Michael. You said this is a choice, she said. So say it clearly. Michael didn't rush the answer. He let a second pass. Then another. Enough for the silence to press in again. You walk out of here, he said, and pretend none of this exists. I don't stop you. Ethan scoffed. That's not a choice. Michael didn't react. You open that, he continued, nodding slightly toward the USB, and we don't leave this room the same way. That landed differently. Not a threat. A boundary. Rebecca's fingers hovered just above the table now, close, but still not touching. What happens if we don't? She asked. Michael's eyes didn't shift. Then you'll find out later, he said. A beat. Just not on your terms. The room tightened again. Ethan let out a short laugh, but it broke halfway. You're bluffing. Michael tilted his head slightly. Am I? No one answered. Because the problem wasn't the USB anymore. It was everything connected to it. Rebecca slowly pulled her hand back, just an inch. Not retreating. Recalculating. You're asking us to trust you, she said. Michael shook his head once. No, he replied. I'm asking you to decide how much control you think you still have. That shifted the ground again. Control. They had built everything on that. Planned it. Executed it. Believed in it. And now it was being questioned. Silence returned. Longer this time. Ethan looked at the USB again, then at Michael, then back. Say we open it, he said. What then? Michael didn't answer immediately. He stepped forward, just one step, close enough that the space between them felt intentional. Then you stop guessing, he said. Another pause. And you start dealing with what's real. Rebecca's breath slowed, almost imperceptibly. Ethan's hand finally twitched, just slightly, toward the USB. Not enough to pick it up, but enough to show the shift. And right there, in that inch of movement, everything balanced on a single decision. Michael didn't move, didn't push, didn't repeat himself. Because now, it wasn't about what he would do next. It was about what they couldn't avoid anymore. And just as Ethan's fingers got closer, Michael spoke again. One more thing. They both looked up. His voice didn't change. If you open it, a beat. You don't get to close it. Silence. Sharp. Final. And for the first time, neither of them knew which choice was worse. Ethan's fingers hovered for one last second. Then he grabbed the USB. Enough, he said, sharper now, more to himself than anyone else. Let's see what this actually is. Rebecca didn't stop him. That was the real shift. Because a moment ago, she was calculating. Now, she needed confirmation. Ethan moved quickly, almost too quickly, sliding the USB into the laptop on the table. The click echoed louder than it should have. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. A file appeared. Unnamed. Timestamped. Michael didn't move. Play it, he said. Ethan clicked. The video opened. At first, just a room. White walls. Hospital light. Slightly off angle. Rebecca's breath caught, barely noticeable, but enough. Ethan frowned. What is, then the frame shifted. Linda. Sitting on the bed. Weaker than they remembered. Alive in a way they hadn't expected to see again. No, Ethan muttered. Rebecca didn't speak. Her eyes locked onto the screen. The video continued. The door opening. Rebecca stepping inside. The same tone. The same posture. Controlled. Convincing. Mom, you just need to sign this. The words filled the room. Not from memory. From proof. Ethan stiffened. This isn't. Michael didn't look at him. On screen, Linda hesitated. Asked the question. Where's Michael? Silence followed in the video. Then Ethan's voice. Clear. Present. It's just paperwork. The room they were standing in tightened. Ethan stepped back half a pace. That's taken out of context, he said quickly. But his voice didn't hold. On screen, Rebecca leaned in. He doesn't need to be here. No hesitation. No doubt. Just pressure. Linda's hand trembled. The pen hovered. Rebecca's voice again, lower now, sharper. Sign it, or we stop the treatment. That was the moment. It didn't explode loudly. It collapsed inward. Rebecca's face didn't move, but the stillness became unnatural. Ethan shook his head, faster now. This is manipulated. It has to be, Michael finally spoke. It isn't. Simple. Flat. Final. The video kept going. Linda signing. Slow. Reluctant. Real. Then she looked up. Straight into the hidden camera. If you're seeing this, Rebecca's breath broke. Then I was right about them. The screen went black. Silence slammed into the room. Not the kind that fades. The kind that stays. Ethan turned abruptly. This doesn't prove anything, he said, louder now, pushing against it. People say things under stress. Michael stepped forward. Just one step. That's exactly what it proves. Ethan stopped talking. Because for the first time, there was nothing to push back with. Rebecca finally moved. Not toward Michael. Toward the laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, as if she could rewind, erase, undo. But she didn't touch it. Because she already knew that what they just saw couldn't be changed. You recorded it, she said quietly. Not a question. Michael shook his head once. No, he replied. Another beat. She did. That hit differently. Because it removed intention. Removed manipulation. Left only truth. Rebecca closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Not panic. Not denial. Recognition. Ethan wasn't there yet. This doesn't go anywhere, he said, turning back, trying to regain ground. You think you can use this? You think this holds up? Michael cut him off. I don't need to think. A pause. Then I already know. Silence returned. Heavier than before. Because now it wasn't about what might happen. It was about what couldn't be undone. And standing there in that room, with the video still open, frozen on the last frame, Ethan and Rebecca realized something too late. They hadn't just been exposed. They had been seen. Completely. Without a way to take it back. For a few seconds after the screen went black, no one moved. Then it hit. Not all at once, first in fragments. Ethan was the first to break. This doesn't mean anything, he said, too quickly, stepping back as if distance could undo what he'd just seen. It's a clip. Out of context. Anyone could, his voice caught. Not completely. But enough. Michael didn't respond. He didn't need to. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, faster, less controlled. No, this is illegal, he added, grasping for something solid. Recording without consent? You think this holds up? You think stop. Rebecca's voice cut through, sharper than before. Ethan froze mid-step. What? He snapped. But Rebecca wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were still on the screen. Not the image, just the reflection of it. You're making it worse, she said quietly. That shift, small, controlled, carried more weight than anything Ethan had said. Because she wasn't denying it. She was adjusting to it. Ethan stared at her. Worse? Rebecca, did you see that? He's trying to trap us. Rebecca finally turned. Then stopped walking into it. Silence. Tight. Ethan's jaw worked as if he wanted to argue, but nothing came out clean. This is insane, he muttered instead, softer now, but more unstable. We didn't force anything. She signed. She agreed. The words sounded weaker the second time. Rebecca didn't respond. Because she had already heard the part that mattered. Ethan's breathing grew uneven, shallow. What if he sends this out? He said suddenly, turning back to Michael. What if this goes public? You think people will just... He stopped himself. Too late. The question had already exposed the fear. Michael watched him, calm, almost distant. Ethan shook his head again, faster now. No, this isn't how this works. You don't just walk in here and his voice broke this time. Not loud, but real. Rebecca stepped back slightly, not away from Michael, but away from Ethan. Creating space. Thinking. Recalculating. This isn't about the video anymore, she said under her breath. Ethan looked at her, confused. Then what is it about? She didn't answer right away. Because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't just exposure. It was loss of control. And that realization settled in differently. Heavier. Slower. More dangerous. Ethan turned again, his movements sharper now, less coordinated. "What do you want?" he demanded, louder again, but this time it wasn't confidence. It was panic trying to sound like control. Michael didn't step forward, didn't raise his voice. He just held his ground, watching. Because the collapse wasn't explosive. It was uneven, cracking at the edges first, before everything gave way. Michael didn't step in when Ethan's voice started breaking. He didn't interrupt, didn't correct. He just waited. That was the shift. Because a moment ago, he had been responding. Now he was setting the pace. Ethan's words kept coming, faster, less structured, trying to fill the space that had suddenly turned against him. "You don't get to do this," he said, pointing vaguely at the laptop, then at Michael. "You don't get to walk in here and act like what?" Michael's voice cut in. Not louder, but perfectly timed. Ethan stopped. Just for a second. And that was enough. Michael stepped forward, not aggressively, not rushed. One controlled step that closed the distance just slightly, shifting the balance without announcing it. "Finish that sentence," he said. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because whatever he was about to say didn't hold anymore. Michael held his gaze, steady, unblinking. "That's what I thought." A quiet line. But it landed harder than anything before. Rebecca noticed it too. Her posture changed, not visibly to someone untrained, but enough. Less confrontational. More guarded. She wasn't pushing anymore. She was assessing. Michael turned his attention to her. "You figured it out already," he said. Not a question. Rebecca didn't deny it. "This isn't about exposure," she said slowly. "It's about leverage." Michael gave a slight nod. "Now we're speaking the same language." That confirmation did something. Because it meant this wasn't chaos. It was controlled. Deliberate. Ethan looked between them. "Leverage for what?" he demanded, but the edge was gone. Michael didn't look at him. "For accountability," he said. A pause. Then he reached for the folder on the table, the one he hadn't touched until now. This time, he opened it. Slowly. No rush. Inside, documents. Structured. Organized. Every page aligned. He turned it toward them, but didn't push it forward. "Medical records," he said. "Timeline of treatments. Payment delays." A page flipped. "Financial transfers. Dates that don't match your statements." Another. "Witness statements." He stopped there. Didn't need to show more. Because the pattern was already clear. Rebecca's eyes moved across the pages quickly, connecting, verifying. Ethan didn't even try to read. "What is this supposed to prove?" he asked, but it sounded weaker now. Michael closed the folder halfway. "Not supposed to," he said. "It does." Silence. Different now. Not chaotic. Not defensive. Structured. Because the ground had shifted completely. Michael straightened slightly, his tone unchanged, but something in it settled deeper. "You thought this ended when the house sold," he said. A beat. It didn't. Rebecca didn't argue. Because she could see it now. The setup. The delay. The disappearance. None of it had been retreat. It had been positioning. Michael's gaze moved between them one last time. Calm. Measured. In control. "You made your move," he said. A pause. "Then, now I'm making mine." And this time, there was no doubt left about who was ahead. For the first time, no one spoke. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the weight of what had just been laid out finally reached its full meaning. Ethan was the one who reacted first. Criminal liability, he repeated slower now, like the words didn't quite belong to him. You're saying, prison? Daniel didn't soften it. Yes. One word. Clean. Irreversible. Ethan let out a short breath, but it didn't steady him. His eyes flicked to Rebecca, searching, expecting her to dismiss it, to cut through it the way she always had. She didn't. Her silence said more than any denial. That's not how this works, Ethan said, but his voice had dropped, losing its edge. People don't just go to prison over something like, Daniel didn't raise his voice. They do, he said. When intent is documented. When pressure is provable. When the outcome benefits the people applying that pressure. Each phrase landed separately. Deliberately. Ethan's posture shifted, shoulders tightening, breath uneven now. No, he muttered, almost to himself. No, we didn't force anything. She signed. Michael spoke, cutting through it. She signed because you gave her no other option. Silence. Sharp. Ethan's mouth opened again, but nothing came out this time. Because the argument he had been repeating no longer held. Rebecca finally moved, but not forward, just a small step back, as if distance might help her think. How far does this go? She asked. Not defiant. Measured. Daniel met her eyes. As far as the evidence allows. A pause. Then, and right now, that's far enough to open a criminal case. The word open settled in. Not as a possibility. As a beginning. Ethan shook his head, but slower now, like the motion itself was losing strength. This is insane, he said, but the panic had already surfaced underneath. You're blowing this out of proportion. Michael didn't argue. He didn't need to. Because fear had already taken its place in the room. Not loud. Not chaotic. But deep. The kind that doesn't disappear once it understands what's at stake. For a long moment, Michael said nothing. He let the fear sit where it had landed inside them, not outside. Then something shifted. Not gradually. All at once. You keep saying she signed, he said, his voice no longer flat. Like that erases everything else. Ethan flinched slightly. Rebecca didn't move. Michael stepped forward, closer now, closer than before, his control still there, but thinner, stretched to its edge. She asked for me, he continued, sharper now. You heard her. You stood there and heard her ask for me. A pause, short, cutting. And you chose not to call. That was the crack. His voice didn't rise into shouting, but it broke through restraint, raw underneath the precision. You didn't forget, he said. You didn't hesitate. You decided. Ethan shook his head instinctively. That's not it is. The word hit harder than volume ever could. Michael's jaw tightened, breath heavier now, no longer hidden. She trusted you, he went on, each word landing faster. Even then. Even when she knew something was wrong, she still trusted you. Silence snapped tight. And you used that. No one answered. Because there was nothing left that sounded believable. Michael held their gaze, both of them now, no distance, no barrier left in his expression. You don't get to call that a signature, he said quietly. A final beat. You call it what it was. And this time, there was no control in the room strong enough to push it back. Ethan didn't answer right away. For the first time since the confrontation began, he couldn't. His eyes dropped, not dramatically, just enough to break contact. His shoulders, once squared, now slightly collapsed inward, like something inside him had finally given way. Michael, he started, but the name came out uneven. That alone changed everything. Because a moment ago, he had been arguing. Now, he was reaching. Look, he said quickly, stepping forward, hands half raised, not defensive anymore, not aggressive. Open. We didn't think it would go this far. Michael didn't move. Ethan swallowed, forcing the words out faster. It wasn't like that. We were under pressure too. The bills, the hospital, everything was falling apart. His voice cracked again, softer this time. We just needed a solution. A pause. Then we didn't mean to hurt her. The sentence hung there, fragile, almost breaking under its own weight. Rebecca didn't interrupt. She didn't support him either. Ethan glanced at her for a second, searching, but found nothing. So he turned back. Fully this time. To Michael. You've made your point, he said, quieter now, stepping even closer. You have everything. The video, the documents, we get it. Another step. Too close to be comfortable. Just, don't do this, he added. That was the shift. Not negotiation. Not defense. A request. His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper now. We can fix it, he said. We'll give it back. The money, the house, whatever you want. Silence. Michael didn't respond. Ethan's composure cracked further. Please, he said. One word. Stripped of everything else. And in that moment, the man who had once stood in control of everything was no longer trying to win. He was trying not to lose everything. Michael didn't answer immediately. He let Ethan's words sit there, exposed, desperate, unfinished. Then he stepped forward. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just enough to close the last bit of distance Ethan had tried to reclaim. You think this is about the house? Michael said quietly. Ethan shook his head quickly. No, it's not just that. We said, we'll fix everything. Michael cut him off. You can't. 2 words. Flat. Final. Ethan froze. Michael's gaze didn't move. You don't get to undo pressure after it worked, he continued. You don't get to return something and call it even. A pause. Short. Controlled. She doesn't get that moment back, he said. That choice you took from her, it doesn't reset because you're scared now. Ethan's mouth opened again, but nothing came out. Because there was nothing left that sounded like control. Michael's voice lowered slightly, not softer, just colder. You're not asking for a solution, he said. You're asking for an escape. That landed deeper than anything before. Rebecca didn't interrupt. She understood. Michael glanced at her briefly, just long enough to confirm it, then looked back at Ethan. And that's the one thing I'm not offering. Silence. No movement. No argument. Just the weight of something that had already been decided. Michael straightened slightly, the tension no longer building, because it had already reached its end. You had your chance, he said. A final beat. You used it. And this time, there was nothing left to negotiate. The room didn't explode after that. It didn't need to. Because everything that mattered had already been said, and nothing left could change it. Michael stood there for a second longer, looking at them, not with anger anymore, not even with satisfaction. Just clarity. Then he turned. No dramatic pause. No final threat. Just a decision already made. And as he reached the door, his hand resting on the handle, he stopped just long enough to speak without turning back. You asked what happens next, he said. A beat. Now you get to live with it. The door opened. Closed. And, just like that, the control they once held didn't come back with him. Silence filled the space he left behind, but this time, it belonged to them. To what they had done. To what they had lost. And to what was still coming. So now, strip everything away. No more legal talk. No more strategy. No more control. Just one question left standing, raw and unavoidable. If you were in Michael's place, would you forgive them after everything? Or would you walk away and let the consequences finish what they started? No middle ground. No safe answer. Just a choice. And whatever you pick says more about you than it does about them. And even after you answer that, something still doesn't sit right. Because this was never just about money or a house or even a single decision made in a hospital room. It cuts deeper. So ask yourself this, honestly, when does a family stop being a family? Is it the moment trust is broken or the moment someone chooses to break it? Is it when love turns into leverage or when silence allows it to happen? You heard her voice. You saw the hesitation. You saw the choice being taken away. So, what matters more, blood or what people do with it? And if someone you trusted crossed that line, would you still call them family? Or does that word lose its meaning the second it's used against you? There's no easy answer here. Because the truth is sometimes the hardest part isn't what they did. It's deciding whether they still deserve a place in your life after it. And maybe that's where it really lands. Not in the courtroom. Not in the documents. Not even in that video. But in the moment after everything is exposed and nothing can be undone. Because here's the part no one says out loud. It wasn't the law that broke them. It was the choice. The one they made when no one was supposed to be watching. The one they thought would disappear once the paper was signed. But it didn't. It stayed. It waited. And in the end, it came back, not louder, not bigger, but clearer than anything else. So, forget the money. Forget the house. This is what's left. When someone shows you exactly who they are at the moment it matters most, do you rewrite the story? Or do you finally believe them? Because Michael didn't destroy his family. He just stopped protecting the truth.